Hey, Dragon here, and a little over a year ago, I covered a game called Roboquest. Now, I never had any intentions of making a video of that game. I saw it looked interesting, decided to give it a go off stream with a couple of friends, and the more I played it, the more I realized this game was really fun, and I really liked it. I just had to make a video of it, I had to show it off. Well, fast forward to about a week ago, and the Roboquest devs contacted me, offering to sponsor my channel to make another video. So this video is sponsored by Starbreeze Entertainment and the developer Rise Up Studios. That said, I already really liked this game, so take that as you will. 1 year ago, Roboquest was in early access. However, this fall, 2023, their 1.0 full build is coming out. It's launching out of early access. That was the reason for them sponsoring me. And if this looks fun to you at all, go buy this game. It's great. Or just wishlist it. That's also good too. But okay, what is Roboquest? What is the point of this game? Well, Roboquest is a movement shooter roguelite. I would like to emphasize that this is mostly a first-person shooter with roguelite elements. For comparison's sake, you know how BioShock is a first-person shooter immersive sim? However, it's far more of a first-person shooter than it is an immersive sim. That's what Roboquest is for movement shooter and roguelite. Also, I asked if someone could explain what the difference between a roguelite and a roguelike is in a previous video, and the gist I get is that if you lose everything and restart the game, it's a roguelike, but if you keep some of your stuff and the game maybe is easier in some other elements, then it's a roguelite. If that's the definition, then this is a roguelite. Let's start in your base camp. This basically serves as a main menu. And this base camp has changed a lot over the last year. I forgot to mention this, but I haven't played this game since I made that video, not because I didn't want to, but because so many other games caught my attention and, you know, life happens, you just get busy. So one of the things I wanted to do is see what changed from then to now, and boy, the game got totally overhauled in mostly better ways. All right, so this base camp. Previously, in order to upgrade your base camp, there was about 4 or 5 different buildings you had to go back and forth to. Now all of that has been centralized into one building with one skill tree. Very small quality of life change, but it is nice. As you play throughout this game, you will get wrenches. You can use these wrenches to upgrade your base camp. Upgrading your base camp will give you a higher chance of, say, rarer loot. Or you get more gadgets, for example. Or maybe your guns will have a higher chance to have better affixes to them. Or maybe you spawn with more power cells. In order for any of that to make sense, we go over to this other building where you can choose your class. There are 5 classes in this game, which is one more than the last time I played, so they added an entirely new class. This new class will be locked at first. In order to unlock it, you need to find a secret spear. Once you find that somewhere throughout one of these maps, pick it up, you got the new class. Anyway, when you're selecting your class, you can choose a gadget. These gadgets will give you power-ups like, say, a triple jump, or make you carry 1 extra weapon, or a grappling hook, or one of my favorites, Pogo. Hold crouch for a certain amount of time, and then you get a super jump. You will get more gadgets the more you upgrade a certain skill in your base camp. Before I talk about these classes, I need to talk about the basic gameplay. For starters, the movement feels fantastic in this game. Sliding gives you a ton of speed, in which you can jump out of that slide and then chain it into another slide. It feels intuitive and natural. This is a big reason why the gameplay is not RNG based. Whether you win or lose is entirely up to your own execution. With that said, this is still a roguelite, so you do have runs where you get better loot. This is not a loadout-based game. You will not choose one gun and stick with that gun the entire run. As you were playing through this run, you will get different weapons with different stats. Depending on the build you want to go for, or just what's more fun to you, that's what your loadout is going to be, and it's going to be constantly changing. And when I say constantly changing, I mean constantly changing. There is a ton of weapons in this game. As you're going through a run, you will also get power cells, which you could use as in-run currency. These aren't wrenches, they don't apply to your base camp, it's just through a run. You can use these to upgrade the current gun you have, but there is a max level. If your gun is too good, you can't upgrade it anymore. You'll get a chance to buy random guns at shops. You might get random cards that will buff you. For example, I found a card that would automatically revive me if I ever got downed, and that saved my ass because my teammate got downed and then I got downed, but we didn't lose the run. One of these cards also made it so that every time I slid, it launched 3 rockets in front of me, and this is so stupid and so absurd. I love it. As for the enemies, they're all robots. One of the games I was playing was how many new enemies are in the game since a year ago, and I swear about half of these enemies I had never seen before. And there were entirely new bosses too. This goes for that tried and true roguelite structure where you have a level and then at the end of the level you will have a boss and it'll change to an entirely different looking level. There is also entirely new levels I had never seen before. Ruins looks really good to me. I love this level. As you probably have noticed, this game goes for a almost cartoony, cel-shaded stylistic look, and I think it looks great. You can go to Ruins, you can go to an oasis, you can go to a ghost town of a large city, and now I've realized I've not explained the story at all. Well, the story is pretty basic. The year is 2700. Humans live scattered throughout the desert, struggling to survive. The world was becoming uninhabitable. In order to address the situation, they built self-sustaining cities. Well, they also built a lot of high-tech robots, and they rebelled. Yeah, it's Terminator. Well, a young girl by the name of Max stumbled across an old Guardian robot. She reactivated this robot, and that is who you were playing as. Despite the story being rather bleak, the vibe is really upbeat, especially this music. The soundtrack is made by Noise Cream, who makes some awesome music. I'm still listening to the soundtrack. It's on Spotify. If you want to listen to it, you can just look up Roboquest soundtrack. It's also on Steam if you want to buy it and just have it yourself. But yeah, I love this music. As I said, I've genuinely been listening to this since the game came out. And very few games actually get that sort of attention from me. Another one is like Boneworks. I still love Boneworks soundtrack. You can also pull in your friends to enjoy the upbeat vibe of this game. It has 2-player co-op and it is cross-platform. This game is coming out on PC, Xbox, and Game Pass. I personally myself played it on PC, so I can only speak on the Steam version of this game. Here is where I get into the real meat of this game, in my opinion. The classes. As I mentioned, there are 5 classes. These classes are Guardian, Recon, Engineer, Commando, and Ranger. Each class has their own special ability, melee, and tons of class perks. Here's also where I need to explain how health works in this game, because it's changed from the last time I played it. Previously, Guardians would have armor, but that no longer exists. Now you just have a health bar. When you take damage, you will take regular damage, plus a bit of scratch damage. The scratch damage is that part of your health bar that's grayed out and can be healed. Every time you take damage, you lose a little bit of that. This is important, keep that in your mind. Alright, let's start with Guardian. Guardian's special ability is that he creates a force field around him. His melee at first is just a right-hand hook. However, one of his upgrades is Bonk Hammer. This gives you a massive hammer that does a ton of damage, but then you may upgrade and this may allow you to do more damage and melee faster when you have your shield activated. Then you may find another upgrade that heals your scratch damage when you have this bubble shield enabled. You can see how these would quickly stack on top of each other. There are so many different loadouts you can choose just from these upgrades alone. That's the route I personally prefer to take, but you can do other things. Next, let's talk about Recon, and this has changed drastically since the last time I played the game. When I played it before, Recon had this sort of stealth ability where you can cloak around and melee things. Well, that cloak is now gone. Instead, your ability is a blink. Your melee is still the laser cutlass. Those blue dots in the bottom center of the screen are your stacks. With a full stack, your melee will do a ton of damage. You get 1 stack every time you destroy an enemy. Now with this class, you can find special abilities like every time you blink, you do a fire explosion coming out of that blink. Or your laser cutlass now sends a blade out in front of it, a projectile blade. Or every time you blink, you heal scratch damage. This class plays a lot more aggressively than Guardian. Although you can play all of these classes aggressively, you can see how this one encourages you to get up in their face. Next up is Engineer, and honestly this doesn't feel like it's changed a whole lot. You've gotten new upgrades and new perks from Engineer, but the concept is still the same. It's easily my least favorite class. It's not bad, I just find it a little boring. The point of this class is to throw out robot drones that can float around you, shoot at enemies, take attention away from you, and that's pretty much it. Again, your perks will give them passive upgrades, maybe give you a little bit of armor when you activate them, things like that. But for the most part, to me, it kind of feels like a standard shooter with robots floating around you. It doesn't really feel like I'm controlling them, so that complaint still exists. That's not an objectively bad thing about this class, may I mind you, that is definitely a subjective opinion. I know someone that loves the Engineer class. The thing that I dislike about it is the main draw for them. Next up is my favorite class in the game. It wasn't before, but it definitely is now. That's Commando. Commando's abilities are all offensive. His special ability is just firing a homing rocket at the enemies. And his melee is a shotgun. Both of these are on cooldown and have a recharge that's fairly quick. Commando has one more trick up its sleeve though. Its passive ability, Fury. You get stacks of Fury for killing enemies. That's what that bar is in the bottom middle. With every stack, it increases your fire rate, reload speed, rocket and shorty attack speed by 1% each, and movement speed by 0.5% for every stack. Again, you get more stacks by killing enemies. If you stop killing enemies, you start losing that meter. However, one of the perks makes this work in reverse. You get max fury and lose some fury when you get hit. This is insane. Another perk I found has me heal my scratch damage if I have max fury. Then I find a bunch of other perks that just increase my damage and reduce cooldowns and stuff like that, and suddenly you feel like a god. This is how I always wanted Commando to play. When you're flying at 1,000,000 miles an hour and doing a ton of damage, it's just peak Roboquest to me. And then there's one last perk, Ranger. This one is new. This one's interesting. It's like a combination of previous perks. You know that cloak ability that Recon used to have? Well, that's on Ranger now. Ranger's special ability is that he can cloak. But his melee? He just throws a javelin at the enemy. You have 2 javelins by default, and they're on a pretty fast cooldown, or you can run over that javelin and pick it back up. His passive ability is awareness. Every 1 second, he generates 1 focus point. Your max is 12. This increases critical damage by 2% for each focus point. Taking damage will just remove all points. Basically, this class is created for critical hits. I definitely feel like you need to be a little more patient with this class. It's fun and it's good, but my mindset is 100% mash buttons, go full monkey mode with Commando, so I'm sure someone else can use this to much better effect than me, or even I could use this to much better effect. I just wasn't really in the mindset to do that. Anyway, you get perk upgrades, like for example, you can increase your javelin charge by 1, and using stealth will trigger an explosion dealing 114 damage around each javelin. There's point blank, which increases the javelin damage within close range. There's night shroud, which I quite liked. While in stealth, and for 9 seconds after exiting stealth, this increases your movement speed by 15%, your armor by 20%, and javelin damage by 50%. Keep in mind, all of these perks have different levels, so you can upgrade these again and get a different effect. And they start stacking. So in summary, this is a movement shooter roguelite that has 2-player co-op, on PC and Xbox and Game Pass, with 5 classes, runs that have a bunch of different enemies and bosses, and a really good soundtrack. There's a lot going on with this game. I really didn't expect it to be as deep as it was when I first found it. I thought it was a hidden gem, and it's, again, coming out of early access, and I would highly recommend it. I know they're sponsoring this video, but again, you can go back and look at my original video where I praised the game when they weren't paying me. Just giving you full disclosure on the fact that they are sponsoring this video. So yeah, Roboquest, really good, really enjoyed the game. Thank you guys for watching. Check the link down below in the video information as to where you can buy this game if you are on Steam, and I'll see you next time.